We're incredibly grateful for your support. Before we begin today's tale, tell us, which city or country are you joining us from? We love connecting with our global audience. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Foundations. Samuel Kerrigan wiped the sweat from his brow as he stood over the barbecue, carefully flipping steaks on a massive grill he'd installed last summer. From the outside, his life appeared perfect. A beautiful colonial-style home in a prestigious neighborhood, a thriving construction business that had expanded into real estate development, and Victoria, his wife of 5 years, who currently laughed with her mother across the expansive backyard. The Wilcox family reunion had become an annual tradition over the past few years. Sam usually enjoyed these gatherings despite the subtle disdain that occasionally flickered in Theodore Wilcox's eyes. Today, however, the atmosphere felt different. Strained. He couldn't pinpoint exactly why. Need any help with those steaks? Bennett Hayes approached, beer in hand. Bennett had been Sam's best friend since they'd met on a construction site 12 years ago. Both of them barely 20 and eager to prove themselves. I'm good, though I could use another beer. Sam gestured with his tongs. Bennett handed him his unopened bottle. How's our project in Oakdale coming along? We finally got approval from the zoning board. Once we break ground next month, we'll be looking at the biggest development deal we've ever landed. Sam couldn't keep the pride from his voice. He had built Kerrigan Construction from nothing, starting with odd jobs and gradually building to where they now employed over 50 people and had projects across 3 states. Not bad for a couple of guys who used to pour concrete in the summer heat. Bennett clinked his bottle against Sam's. Across the yard, Victoria caught Sam's eye and offered a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. At 32, she retained the elegant beauty that had first captivated him when they met at a charity gala 6 years earlier. Her dark hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders, and the sundress she wore accentuated her slender figure. The physical attraction had never waned, but lately something else had. The connection, the partnership. Their conversations had grown shorter, their intimacy less frequent. Sam had attributed it to stress. The pressures of his expanding business, Victoria's role at her family's struggling investment firm, the subtle but persistent questions from both their families about when they plan to have children. You ever wonder if we picked the right path? Sam asked suddenly. Bennett raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? All this? Sam gestured vaguely at the house, the yard full of Victoria's family members. Sometimes I wonder if I've been working towards someone else's dream. Whose dream would that be? Sam shrugged. Victoria's. Her father's. The blueprint for success, according to the Wilcox family. Theodore Wilcox approached, his imposing figure casting a long shadow across the patio. At 65, he still carried himself with the commanding presence of someone accustomed to being obeyed. His once prosperous investment firm had taken significant hits during the financial crisis, but he maintained a facade of wealth and influence. I hope you're not overcooking those, Samuel, Theodore remarked, eyeing the steaks critically. Medium rare for you, sir, just as you like it. Sam kept his voice level. 5 years of marriage had taught him to navigate Theodore's subtle barbs with a practiced neutrality. Preston tells me you've acquired that land in Oakdale. Theodore swirled the whiskey in his glass. Ambitious move. I recall advising against it. The infrastructure costs alone will eat into your profit margin considerably. We've accounted for that in our projections. Sam flipped another steak, resisting the urge to point out that Theodore's own investment advice had nearly bankrupted his firm. Theodore's dismissive hum spoke volumes. Victoria mentioned your financing through First National. Their interest rates are hardly competitive. We negotiated favorable terms. Sam turned to Bennett. Would you mind bringing out the serving platter? These are about ready. Bennett nodded, recognizing the request for what it was, an escape route from the conversation. As the evening progressed, Sam found himself observing the dynamics around him with newfound clarity. Preston Wilcox, Victoria's older brother, kept shooting glances his way, smirking into his wine glass as if privy to some private joke. Victoria herself seemed distracted, checking her phone frequently and engaging in hushed conversations with Preston. By 9, Most of the guests had departed. Only Preston and his wife Natalie remained, along with Theodore and Eleanor Wilcox. Victoria moved through the kitchen with practiced efficiency, loading the dishwasher while Sam gathered glasses from the patio. "I need to grab some more chairs from the garage," Sam announced, heading toward the side door. Nobody acknowledged him. The garage was dimly lit, the overhead fluorescent flickering as Sam located the folding chairs they kept for occasions like this. He was about to pick them up when he heard voices just outside the door that connected to the kitchen. "I still can't believe you married this loser." Preston's voice drifted through. "Dad's right. You need to divorce him before you have kids and get stuck forever." Sam froze, the metal of the chair cold against his palms. "Already working on it," Victoria replied, her voice low but distinct. "My lawyer says we can take half his business too." The words hit like physical blows, each one driving the air from Sam's lungs. He stood absolutely still, his mind racing to process what he'd just heard. "What about Donovan?" Preston asked. "He's impatient, but he understands the situation. We need to time this properly to maximize what I can get from the divorce. Dad will be thrilled. He never thought Sam was good enough for you. Dad was right about him." Victoria's tone was dismissive. "Sam was useful for a while, but he's reached his ceiling. Donovan has real connections, real potential. Just be careful. Sam might seem like a pushover, but he's not stupid." The kitchen door opened wider, and Sam quickly grabbed the chairs, arranging his features into a neutral expression. When he re-entered the house moments later, Preston and Victoria fell silent, exchanging glances. "Found them," Sam announced with a perfect smile, his voice betraying nothing of the storm raging within him. "Who's ready for dessert?" Chapter 2. Shattered Glass. 2 days after the family gathering, Sam sat in his office at Kerrigan Construction, staring unseeing at the blueprints spread across his desk. The conversation he'd overheard played on repeat in his mind, a poison slowly working through his system. Bennett entered without knocking, a habit from their years of friendship. "You look like hell, Sam." "Thanks. Just what I needed to hear." Sam leaned back in his chair, rubbing his eyes. "Seriously, what's going on? You've been off since the family barbecue." Sam hesitated. Bennett was the closest thing to family he had, more family than his actual blood relatives had ever been. His mother, Iris, had abandoned him when he was 12, leaving him to navigate the foster system. His father remained unknown, a blank space on his birth certificate. "Victoria's planning to divorce me," Sam said finally. "I overheard her talking to Preston. She's working with some lawyer to take half my business." Bennett's expression morphed from concern to shock to anger. "You're sure about this? Maybe you misheard. She also mentioned someone named Donovan. Apparently, he's got real potential, unlike me." Sam's laugh was bitter. "Theodore never thought I was good enough for his precious daughter. Turns out he was planning for this all along." "What are you going to do?" Sam's phone buzzed with a text. Victoria, reminding him about dinner with her parents that evening. "For now, nothing. I'm going to continue being the perfect husband while I figure out my next move." Sam's jaw tightened. "But I'm not walking away from what I built. Not for Victoria, not for Theodore, not for anyone." "Sam, you need to talk to a lawyer." "Like yesterday." "Already on it. I'm meeting with Melanie Frost tomorrow morning." Bennett nodded approvingly. Melanie had represented them in several business deals. Her reputation for ruthless efficiency was well earned. "There's something else," Sam continued. "I need to find out who this Donovan is. Victoria's been acting strange for months, taking calls in private, working late, weekend girls' trips that Diana knew nothing about. Diana Sloan had been Victoria's best friend since college. She'd always seemed uncomfortable around Sam, though he'd attributed it to her naturally reserved personality. "You think she's been cheating?" "I don't know, but I intend to find out." Sam's expression hardened. "And I need your help, Bennett. This stays between us. If Victoria suspects I know anything, I'll lose whatever advantage I might have. You know I've got your back. What do you need?" "Information. Watch The Office while I'm out this afternoon. I need to do some digging." After Bennett left, Sam pulled up the banking app on his phone. He and Victoria maintained a joint account for household expenses, but Sam had always kept his business finances separate, a decision that now seemed prescient. Scrolling through recent transactions, he noticed several large withdrawals and an unusual number of charges at upscale restaurants and hotels where he'd never been. He opened his laptop and accessed Victoria's email. They'd shared passwords early in their marriage, a gesture of trust that Victoria had apparently forgotten. Most communications were innocuous, but a folder labeled Personal Projects caught his attention. Inside, he found dozens of exchanges with someone using the email address dp_pierce@gmail.com. The most recent email, dated just yesterday, made Sam's blood run cold. V. Missing you already after this weekend. Your plan sounds perfect. The sooner you can extricate yourself from your current situation, the sooner we can start our real life together. My new position at Westwood Financial opens in September, and they're expecting my wife to attend the welcome gala. Let's make sure you're free by then. With all my heart, D. Sam's hand shook slightly as he continued searching. It didn't take long to connect the dots. Donovan Pierce, Victoria's college boyfriend who had recently returned from a banking stint in Europe. According to his LinkedIn profile, he'd just accepted a senior position at Westwood Financial, one of the largest investment firms in the region. A quick social media search revealed multiple recent photos of Donovan at various social events, always immaculately dressed, always surrounded by people who appeared impressed by his mere presence. In several photos, Sam noticed Victoria in the background. These must have been the business networking events she'd attended without him. The piece that broke something inside Sam was an image from 3 months earlier. Victoria and Donovan, their heads close together at what appeared to be a resort. The caption, posted by a mutual friend, read, "Some couples just belong together, no matter how much time passes. #destined." That night, Sam arrived home at precisely 6:30 p.m., just as he always did on Tuesdays. Victoria greeted him with a kiss on the cheek, the same perfunctory gesture she'd offered for months. "Don't forget we're having dinner with my parents tonight," she reminded him, adjusting her earrings in the hallway mirror. "How could I forget?" Sam's voice was pleasant, giving no indication of the rage simmering beneath the surface. "Should I change?" Victoria glanced at his suit. "That's fine, though maybe the blue tie instead. Dad likes when you make an effort." Dad likes when you make an effort. The absurdity of her concern about his tie choice while she plotted to destroy him almost made Sam laugh. Instead, he nodded agreeably and went upstairs to change. Dinner with Theodore and Eleanor Wilcox unfolded like a surreal play. Sam observed as Victoria engaged her parents in animated conversation about Preston's new vacation home, Theodore's golf game, and Eleanor's charity work. Not once did she mention the lawyer she'd referenced to Preston, nor did she show any sign of the betrayal she was orchestrating. "Samuel," Theodore addressed him directly as dessert was served, "Victoria tells me you've been working extraordinary hours lately. I do hope you're not neglecting your responsibilities at home." Sam caught the veiled criticism. "You're neglecting my daughter." The irony was almost unbearable. "Actually, I've been reassessing some priorities," Sam replied smoothly. "I think it's time to focus more on what truly matters." Victoria looked up sharply, something like alarm flickering in her eyes. "That's unexpected," she said carefully. "You've always been so committed to growing the business." "People change," Sam offered a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Sometimes quite dramatically." That night, as Victoria slept beside him, maintaining the careful distance that had become their norm, Sam stared at the ceiling, his mind crystallizing around a single thought. "They want to take everything from me. I'll give them nothing but regret." Chapter 3. The Architect's Blueprint. 3 days after the family dinner, Sam's WhatsApp exploded with notifications. 87 messages from Victoria in the span of 2 hours, growing increasingly desperate. "Sam, call me immediately." "Sam, this is an emergency. Please tell me you didn't do this. My father is going to destroy you for this. Answer your phone." The messages continued, alternating between threats and pleas. Sam read them with detached interest as he sat in Melanie Frost's sleek downtown office. "So they're panicking," Melanie observed, peering at Sam's phone over her thin-framed glasses. At 45, she had built a reputation as one of the most formidable divorce attorneys in the state. Her tailored suit and precise bob haircut projected an image of controlled efficiency. "Care to tell me why?" Theodore Wilcox made some risky investments through his firm. Those investments are suddenly underperforming dramatically. Sam set his phone down as another message arrived. He's hemorrhaging clients by the hour. And I suppose you had nothing to do with that. Melanie's tone made it clear she didn't believe him for a second. I simply shared some publicly available information with certain interested parties. Sam shrugged. Information that Theodore had been concealing from his clients. Melanie's lips twitched in what might have been appreciation. You realize this complicates our strategy. On the contrary, it clarifies it. Sam leaned forward. Victoria and her father thought they could take what I built. They're about to discover I don't play defense. The events leading to this moment had unfolded. After confirming Victoria's betrayal, Sam had implemented a plan that required patience, discretion, and strategic alliances. His first move had been to protect Kerrigan Construction. Working with Melanie, he had restructured the business ownership, transferring significant assets to a new LLC that would be insulated from divorce proceedings. He had also documented every instance of Victoria's infidelity, building a case that would undermine her claims to his assets. Then, he had turned his attention to Theodore Wilcox. The man had made his disdain for Sam abundantly clear over the years, viewing him as nothing more than a fortunate upstart who had somehow trapped his daughter. Through careful research and some information provided by sources Theodore had alienated over the years, Sam had uncovered the precarious state of Wilcox investments. Theodore had been misleading clients about the performance of certain funds, using his reputation and family connections to maintain the illusion of success. Sam had anonymously provided this information to several of Theodore's largest clients, along with documented evidence of the actual returns on their investments. The reaction had been swift and merciless. "What about this Donovan Pierce?" Melanie asked, reviewing her notes. "Victoria's lover? He's the weak link." Sam's expression hardened. Ambitious, arrogant, and overextended financially. His new position at Westwood Financial is contingent on a clean personal and professional record. And I assume that record isn't as clean as they believe? Let's just say Mr. Pierce has been creative with his resume and personal history. Sam checked his watch. By now, Westwood's board should be receiving a detailed dossier on their new hires' actual qualifications and activities. When his phone rang, Victoria again, Sam declined the call without hesitation. "You understand she'll claim you're doing this out of spite," Melanie cautioned. "That you discovered her affair and are retaliating. Let her. The timing works in our favor. The restructuring of my business happened months ago, well before I had any knowledge of her infidelity. As for Theodore's situation, I merely shared factual information that any responsible investor would want to know." Sam's smile was cold. "I'm a concerned citizen, nothing more." Melanie studied him with newfound respect. "I've represented hundreds of clients in high-conflict divorces, Samuel. Most of them are reactive, emotional, impulsive, self-destructive. You're something else entirely. I learned early that emotions are a luxury I couldn't afford." Sam thought briefly of his childhood, the series of foster homes, the constant need to adapt and survive. Victoria and her family saw me as a stepping stone. They never bothered to look beneath the surface. Their mistake. Melanie closed her portfolio. "We'll file the divorce papers tomorrow. Given what you've documented, Victoria's claims on your business will be significantly weakened." "But Samuel..." She removed her glasses, her expression serious. "Be careful. People are most dangerous when cornered." Sam nodded, then checked his phone again. The message count had reached 103. Leaving Melanie's office, he drove to Bennett's house rather than returning home. Victoria would be waiting, likely with Theodore in tow, ready to confront him. That confrontation would happen, but on his terms, not theirs. Bennett opened the door before Sam could knock. "Jesus, man, have you seen the news?" He gestured toward the television, where a local news channel was reporting on the sudden client exodus from Wilcox Investments. Theodore's ashen face filled the screen as he offered terse no comments to reporters outside his office building. "Victoria's called me 6 times, Bennett continued. "She's looking for you everywhere." "I know." Sam sank into a chair, suddenly feeling the weight of the past week. "It's happening faster than I expected." Are you sure about this, Sam? There's no going back. They didn't give me that option. Sam's voice was quiet but resolute. They plan to take everything from me, Bennett. Not just my marriage, my business, my reputation, my future. All while smiling to my face. Bennett handed him a beer. So what's next? Now we move to phase 2. Sam took a long drink. Victoria and Theodore are just the beginning. There's still Donovan Pierce to deal with. The boyfriend, the architect. Sam's expression darkened. From what I've discovered, he's been helping Theodore with some creative accounting at Wilcox Investments. He's also been promising Victoria a lavish future using money he doesn't actually have. And you're gonna what? Expose him too? No. Sam set down his beer. I'm gonna give him exactly what he wants. The next morning, precisely at 9 a.m., Sam walked into his home. Victoria sat at the kitchen island, her eyes red-rimmed, her normally perfect appearance disheveled. When she saw him, she leapt to her feet. Where have you been? Her voice was ragged. My father's firm is imploding. Donovan's job offer has been rescinded, and I received divorce papers from your lawyer this morning. What the hell have you done? Sam regarded her calmly, noting the panic beneath her anger. I've done exactly what you've taught me, Victoria. I protected my interests. What are you talking about? You're destroying everything. 3 days ago, I stood in our garage and heard you plotting with Preston to divorce me and take half my business. You mentioned your lover, Donovan, and how eager you were to start your real life with him. Sam's voice remained even. Did you really think I would just stand by and let that happen? Victoria paled. Sam, you don't understand. It's not what you think. Stop. Sam held up his hand. The time for lies has passed. The divorce will proceed. Your father's firm will likely not recover. His clients are quite upset about being misled for years. And as for Donovan, Sam smiled thinly. He'll need to find another path to the success he craves. You can't do this. Victoria's shock was giving way to desperate calculation. He could see it in her eyes, the frantic search for leverage, for some way to regain control. I already have. Sam turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Victoria? You should know that the Oakdale Development Project? It's worthless. The land is contaminated, has been for decades. Theodore's enthusiastic recommendation that I purchase it was his first attempt to ruin me. I've known about the contamination from the beginning. Victoria's confusion was genuine. Then why did you buy it? Because I needed to understand what kind of man your father truly is. Sam opened the door. The kind who would sabotage his own daughter's husband to maintain control. The kind who deserves exactly what's happening to him now. As he walked to his car, Sam's phone buzzed with a text from Bennett. Pierce just called me. He wants to meet. Says he has a proposition that can fix everything. Sam typed a quick reply. Perfect. Tell him I'll meet tomorrow. 2 p.m. at the Continental. Phase 2 is unfolding exactly as planned. Chapter 4, Dead Reckoning. The Continental Hotel's lounge exuded old-world luxury. Dark wood paneling, leather armchairs, and discreet alcoves designed for private conversations. Sam arrived 15 minutes early, positioning himself in a corner booth with a clear view of the entrance. When Donovan Pierce walked in at precisely 2 p.m., Sam took the measure of his wife's lover with clinical detachment. Tall and lanky, with carefully styled blonde hair, Donovan moved with the practiced confidence of someone accustomed to commanding attention. His tailored suit spoke of expensive tastes, though the slight fraying at the cuffs suggested his finances might not fully support his lifestyle. Sam raised a hand, catching Donovan's attention. The moment their eyes met, a flicker of uncertainty crossed Donovan's features before he smoothed it away with a practiced smile. Samuel Kerrigan. Donovan extended his hand as he approached. I appreciate you agreeing to meet. Sam shook the offered hand briefly, gesturing for Donovan to sit. Bennett said you had a proposition. No pleasantries, no pretense. Donovan seemed momentarily thrown by the directness, but quickly recovered. Look, I understand you're angry. You have every right to be. Donovan leaned forward, lowering his voice. But what's happening now isn't good for anyone. Theodore's firm is collapsing. Victoria is devastated. My career prospects have evaporated overnight. And this concerns me because... Sam took a sip of his whiskey watching Donovan over the rim of his glass. Because there's a way forward that benefits everyone. Donovan glanced around before continuing. I know about the Oakdale property, that it's contaminated. I also know you haven't disclosed this to any potential investors or partners. Sam's expression remained neutral, though inwardly he noted the trap Theodore had helped Donovan prepare. They'd expected him to proceed with the development, unaware of the contamination. When the truth inevitably came to light, the resulting scandal and financial losses would have destroyed Kerrigan Construction. Go on, Sam prompted. I have connections at the Environmental Protection Agency. With the right encouragement, they could expedite the cleanup process, clear the land for development within 6 months instead of the usual years. Donovan's confidence was growing as he laid out his proposal. Meanwhile, Theodore could arrange favorable financing through some of his remaining banking relationships. All out of the goodness of your hearts, I'm sure. Donovan had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. We would require certain considerations. A 40% share in the development project. And, he hesitated, you dropped the divorce proceedings against Victoria. Sam leaned back, studying the man across from him. Donovan Pierce was everything Theodore Wilcox valued. Polished, pedigreed, connected to the right people. He was also, Sam had discovered, deeply in debt and ethically flexible. And if I refuse, then information about your knowledge of the contamination goes public. Donovan's attempt at regret fell flat. As I said, nobody wins in that scenario. Sam nodded slowly, as if considering the proposal. You've clearly thought this through, but there's a significant detail you've overlooked. What's that? I never planned to develop that land. Sam smiled at Donovan's confusion. The Oakdale property was a diversion. A costly one, I'll admit, but necessary. The real development is happening in Ridgemont, on land I purchased through a separate LLC. Donovan's confidence faltered. I don't understand. Theodore tried to sabotage me by steering me toward contaminated land. I knew this because I do my research, unlike your future father-in-law. Sam leaned forward. The Oakdale purchase was simply to confirm my suspicions about Theodore's intentions. That's insane. You spent millions on land you knew was worthless. I spent millions to understand exactly who I was dealing with. Sam's voice hardened. And now I do. Donovan's expression shifted from confusion to calculation. Whatever game you're playing, Kerrigan, you're out of your depth. Theodore Wilcox has connections you can't imagine. Had connections, Sam corrected mildly. Past tense. Most of them are currently fielding calls from attorneys representing angry clients. But you know that already, don't you? It's why Westwood Financial rescinded your job offer. The flash of genuine fear in Donovan's eyes confirmed Sam's assessment. Theodore's fall from grace had left Donovan exposed. His own career prospects have been built largely on Theodore's influence and recommendations. What do you want? Donovan asked finally, his earlier bravado evaporating. I want you to deliver a message to Theodore and Victoria. Sam slid a sealed envelope across the table. Everything they need to know is in there. Donovan stared at the envelope as if it might bite him. That's it. For now. Sam stood, dropping cash on the table for his drink. Oh, and Donovan, I've documented every aspect of our conversation today, including your attempt to blackmail me. Just something to keep in mind moving forward. As Sam walked away, he felt Donovan's eyes burning into his back. The man was dangerous, not because of any inherent strength or cunning, but because of his desperation. People with nothing left to lose often made unpredictable moves. Outside the hotel, Sam checked his phone to find a text from a number he didn't recognize. I heard what's happening with the Wilcox family. We should talk. Iris. Sam stared at the message, a complex mix of emotions churning within him. Iris Kerrigan, the mother who had abandoned him 20 years ago, suddenly reaching out now. The timing was suspect, to say the least. He typed a brief reply. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. My office. The coincidence of his estranged mother reappearing just as his marriage imploded seemed too convenient. Was she another piece in Theodore's game? Or something else entirely? That evening, Sam met with Officer Graham Naylor at a quiet bar on the outskirts of town. Naylor, a police detective whose brother worked for Kerrigan Construction, had become a valuable ally in recent months. Your information was solid, Naylor confirmed, sliding a thin folder across the booth. Donovan Pierce has quite the history. Multiple allegations of financial impropriety, though nothing that ever stuck. Several ex-girlfriends with similar stories about promises made and broken. And most interestingly, he tapped a particular document, a previous marriage he never disclosed. Sam raised an eyebrow. He's still married? Technically, yes. Filed for divorce 3 years ago, but never completed the process. The wife lives in Arizona now, apparently unaware that the divorce wasn't finalized. Victoria knows nothing about this. I bet my pension on it. Naylor took a swig of his beer. There's more. Pierce has been making regular payments to a woman named Alicia Mendez for the past 4 years. Around $2,000 monthly cash deposits. Blackmail, or child support that he doesn't want on the record. We're still digging. Sam absorbed this information, pieces clicking into place. And Theodore? Anything new there? The SEC is officially investigating Wilcox Investments. They're being tight-lipped about specifics, but word is they've found some significant irregularities. Naylor hesitated. Sam, I should warn you. Theodore's been making noise about you. Claims you orchestrated this whole situation to destroy him. Let him. He'll find precious little sympathy given what's coming to light about his business practices. As they parted ways, Naylor offered a final piece of advice. Watch your back. Men like Theodore Wilcox don't go down quietly. Sam returned to the small apartment he'd rented after leaving the house he'd shared with Victoria. The space was sparsely furnished, just the essentials he needed while his life reconfigured itself around the truth he'd discovered. Bennett called as Sam was reviewing documents for an upcoming project meeting. Victoria showed up at my door an hour ago, Bennett said without preamble. She was pretty worked up, wanted to know where you're staying. What did you tell her? That I had no idea, which was true until you gave me this address yesterday. Bennett paused. Sam, she seemed different. Scared. Said she needs to talk to you about something important. Did she mention what Donovan and I discussed today? No, but she did say something odd. She asked if you'd been in contact with someone named Iris. Sam's grip on the phone tightened. My mother. Yeah, I figured that much. How would Victoria know about her? That's what I intend to find out. Sam ended the call, his mind racing. Victoria knowing about Iris's contact suggested a connection he hadn't anticipated. Had Theodore somehow tracked down his estranged mother? If so, what did they hope to gain by bringing her into this situation? The next morning, Sam arrived at his office early, preparing for the meeting with Iris. He hadn't seen her since he was 12 years old, the day she'd left him with a neighbor, promising to return in a few hours. Those hours had stretched into days, then weeks, then years. At precisely 10 a.m., his assistant announced her arrival. When Iris Kerrigan walked into his office, Sam was struck by how little she resembled the mother in his memories. The woman before him was in her early 50s, her once vibrant red hair now streaked with gray, her face lined with the evidence of a difficult life. Samuel. Her voice held a tremor. Thank you for agreeing to see me. Let's skip the pleasantries. Sam remained standing behind his desk. What do you want? And what's your connection to Theodore Wilcox? Iris flinched slightly at his tone. I understand your anger, but I'm not here because of Theodore Wilcox. I didn't even know who he was until recently. Recently meaning when, exactly? When Victoria or Donovan contacted you? No one contacted me, Samuel. I've been trying to find you for years. Iris clutched her purse tightly. I saw the article about your company in the Business Journal last year. Since then, I've been working up the courage to reach out. And you chose now, in the middle of my divorce, purely by coincidence. I heard about your situation through a friend who works at the courthouse. When divorce papers are filed, they become public record. Iris took a tentative step forward. Samuel, I know I have no right to ask anything of you, but there are things you need to know about your father about why I left. Sam studied her, looking for signs of deception. Theodore didn't send you? No. In fact, Iris hesitated, then continued with visible resolve. I believe Theodore Wilcox may have been involved with some very dangerous people. people connected to your father's death. This was not at all what Sam had expected. My father? You told me he abandoned us before I was born. I lied. Iris's admission was quiet but clear. Your father was murdered when you were 2 years old, and I've recently discovered evidence suggesting Theodore Wilcox may have been involved. Chapter 5. Shadows from the Past. Sam stared at his mother, the world seeming to tilt beneath him. That's a serious accusation. I know. Iris reached into her purse, removing a worn manila envelope. I have documentation, police reports, newspaper clippings, and some personal items of your father's that I've kept hidden all these years. And you're only sharing this now. Disbelief colored Sam's tone. After 20 years of silence, I was terrified, Samuel. Iris's hands trembled slightly as she placed the envelope on his desk. Your father, Michael Kerrigan, was investigating financial fraud at several investment firms. He worked as a forensic accountant for the SEC. When he got too close to exposing a major money laundering operation, he was killed, made to look like a robbery gone wrong. Sam made no move to touch the envelope. And Theodore was involved? I believe so. I didn't know for certain until I saw your name linked to his in that article last year. Iris's expression hardened. When I learned you'd married Theodore Wilcox's daughter, I nearly came forward then. But I needed more proof. And now you have it. Some. Enough to warrant an official investigation, at least. Sam's mind raced, reassessing everything he thought he knew. If Iris was telling the truth, it cast his relationship with Victoria, and more importantly, Theodore's persistent hostility, in an entirely new light. Theodore wouldn't have known who I was, Sam reasoned aloud. I was 2 when all this supposedly happened. My name wouldn't have meant anything to him. He might not have connected you to Michael immediately. Iris agreed. But when you became successful, started appearing in business publications, someone would have noticed the resemblance. Michael was well known in financial circles before his death. Sam finally picked up the envelope, examining its contents with clinical detachment. Inside, he found exactly what Iris had described: police reports, newspaper articles about his father's murder, and several photographs of a man who shared Sam's build and features, though with darker hair. One item in particular caught his attention: a small notebook filled with handwritten observations and figures. The last entry, dated just 3 days before Michael Kerrigan's death, contained a cryptic note. WI confirmed connection to offshore accounts. TW acting as intermediary for cleaning services. Meeting scheduled for Friday to present findings to Fisher. TW, Sam murmured. Theodore Wilcox, Iris confirmed. He was much younger then, just starting to build his reputation in investment banking. Your father was convinced he was helping several clients hide and launder money. Sam closed the notebook, his expression unreadable. Why did you leave me? The abrupt change of subject seemed to catch Iris off guard. After Michael's death, I received threats, phone calls, notes left on our door. They made it clear that if I pursued any investigation into Michael's murder, you would be next. Her voice cracked. I thought by disappearing, by changing our names, and leaving you with what appeared to be an unrelated family, I could protect you. For 20 years, I checked on you when I could from a distance. Made sure the foster families were treating you well. Iris wiped away a tear. When you aged out of the system and started your construction business, I thought you were finally safe, anonymous, successful on your own terms. Then I saw you with Victoria Wilcox in that magazine, and I knew Theodore would eventually realize who you were. You think my marriage to Victoria wasn't a coincidence? I don't know. Iris looked troubled. It seems unlikely that Theodore would orchestrate something that elaborate. But the timing of everything, your rapid success, meeting Victoria at that particular charity event. Sam thought back to his first meeting with Victoria. The charity gala had been Bennett's idea, or rather, Bennett's girlfriend at the time had insisted they attend. Victoria had approached Sam, not the other way around. Had that been orchestrated? Had his entire relationship been built on Theodore's long game of revenge or control? I need time to process this, Sam said finally, and I need to verify your claims independently. Understand. Iris stood. I'm staying at the Westbrook Hotel, room 412. When you're ready to talk again. She placed a business card on his desk. My current name is Iris Matthews. I've been living in Seattle for the past 10 years. After she left, Sam sat motionless, staring at the envelope and its contents. If what Iris claimed was true, it added a dimension to Theodore's machinations that went beyond simple snobbery or social climbing. It suggested a decades-long deception with implications Sam was only beginning to comprehend. His intercom buzzed, interrupting his thoughts. "Mr. Kerrigan, there's a Diana Sloan here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's urgent." Diana, Victoria's best friend. Sam hesitated, then made a decision. "Send her in." Diana entered his office with visible trepidation. Always quiet and reserved at social gatherings, she seemed especially nervous now, fidgeting with the strap of her handbag. "Thank you for seeing me," she began. "I know this is unexpected. What can I do for you, Diana?" Sam gestured for her to sit. "It's about Victoria." Diana perched on the edge of the chair. "And Theodore. And everything that's happening. You'll need to be more specific." Diana took a deep breath. "I've known Victoria since college. We were roommates freshman year. I was there when she first dated Donovan, and I was there when Theodore forced them to break up." This was new information. Forced them? Theodore never approved of Donovan. He thought Donovan lacked ambition, connections. Diana looked down at her hands. He threatened to cut off Victoria's tuition if she continued seeing him. She complied, but they never really got over each other. And this is relevant now because Theodore orchestrated their reconnection last year. Diana met his gaze directly for the first time. He arranged for Donovan to return from Europe, set up their accidental meeting at that finance conference Victoria attended. It was all part of his plan to. She faltered. "To what, Diana?" "To get Victoria away from you." Diana's voice dropped to nearly a whisper. "Theodore has always hated you, Sam. From the moment Victoria brought you home, he's been plotting to remove you from her life. I never understood why his hatred ran so deep. It seemed personal somehow." Sam kept his expression neutral, though inwardly, Iris's claims were gaining credibility. "And Victoria went along with this plan willingly?" "Not at first." Diana shook her head. "She genuinely loved you, I believe. But Theodore is persuasive. And Victoria has always sought his approval above all else. When Donovan reappeared, offering her the life Theodore had always wanted for her, she chose her father's vision over our marriage." "Yes." Diana looked genuinely regretful. "I'm telling you this because you deserve to know the truth. And because I'm worried about Victoria." "Worried how?" "She's unraveling, Sam. Since everything with Theodore's firm came to light, since the divorce filing, she's not herself. She's talking about confronting her father, demanding the truth about something from his past." Diana leaned forward. She mentioned a name, Michael Kerrigan. She asked if I knew who that was. Sam felt a chill run through him. So Victoria was making connections too. "What did you tell her?" "Nothing. I had no idea who that was." Diana hesitated. "Is he related to you?" "My father." Sam didn't elaborate. "How did Victoria learn that name?" "I don't know, but she was upset, almost frantic. Said she found documents in Theodore's home office that contradicted everything he'd ever told her." Diana stood, seemingly having delivered her message. "I should go. If Victoria knew I was here." "Thank you for coming, Diana." Sam walked her to the door. "One more thing. Have you ever heard Victoria mention someone named Iris Matthews or Iris Kerrigan?" Diana thought for a moment, then shook her head. "No, never. Is she important?" "Potentially. If Victoria brings her up, I'd appreciate knowing about it." After Diana left, Sam called Bennett. "I need you to run a background check on Iris Matthews, currently staying at the Westbrook Hotel. And I need everything you can find on Michael Kerrigan's murder in 1992. Your father." Bennett sounded surprised. "Sam, what's going on?" "A complication. Possibly an opportunity. I'll explain later." Sam ended the call and turned his attention to the documents Iris had provided. If Theodore was truly connected to his father's murder, if his marriage to Victoria had been part of some elaborate scheme, then the stakes had just risen exponentially. That evening, as Sam was leaving his office, he received a text from Victoria. "We need to talk. About your father. About mine. Please, Sam. This is bigger than us." Sam stared at the message, weighing his options. Engaging with Victoria now could compromise the leverage he'd built. But if she had information about Theodore's connection to his father's death, he typed a simple reply. Tomorrow, noon. The boathouse at Lakeside Park. The public location would limit the potential for drama while providing enough privacy for a substantive conversation. And Sam had arrangements to make before then. Contingencies to prepare in case this was another trap. As he drove to his apartment, Sam's mind kept returning to the fragments of the past, now emerging into the light. His father's murder, Theodore's possible involvement, Victoria's role in the deception, his own unwitting participation in what might have been an elaborate game of revenge spanning decades. One thing was certain: whatever Theodore's endgame had been, it was unraveling rapidly, and Sam intended to be the one controlling the final moves. Chapter 6: The Turning Point. The boathouse at Lakeside Park stood on sturdy wooden pilings at the edge of the water, its weathered blue exterior a familiar landmark to locals. Sam arrived 30 minutes early, surveying the area and selecting a bench with clear sight lines in all directions. He nodded to Officer Naylor, who was positioned unobtrusively near the park entrance, ostensibly enjoying his lunch break. Victoria arrived precisely at noon, alone as instructed. She wore a simple gray dress, her hair pulled back in a severe ponytail, a marked departure from her usually meticulous styling. Dark circles beneath her eyes suggested recent sleepless nights. "Thank you for meeting me," she said as she sat beside him, maintaining a careful distance. "You mentioned my father." Sam kept his voice neutral. "I'm curious how you know anything about him." Victoria clutched her handbag tightly. 3 days ago, after you walked out, I went to confront my father. I demanded to know what he'd done to provoke you into destroying his firm, our marriage, everything. And he was drunk, Sam. I've never seen him like that before. Victoria's voice wavered. He started ranting about karma and justice, and how the son had returned to finish what the father started. When I pressed him, he told me to look in his safe, said I deserved to know what kind of man I'd married. The safe contained information about my father. Victoria nodded. Newspaper clippings about his murder, financial records, and, she hesitated, photographs of you as a child. Photos taken without your knowledge, spanning years. My father had been tracking you since you were 12 years old, Sam. The revelation sent a cold wave through Sam, despite his suspicions. Why? Fear, I think. An obsession. Victoria withdrew a flash drive from her purse. Everything I found is copied here, including my father's journal entries about you, about how he needed to control the situation when you emerged as a successful businessman in the same city where he operated. Control the situation by having you marry me. Sam's tone was flat. Victoria flinched. Yes, though I didn't know that at the time. I had no idea who you really were when we met. When you approached me at that charity gala, the memory reshuffled itself in Sam's mind. Victoria making her way across the room toward him, introducing herself with that perfect smile. That wasn't coincidence. No. Victoria's admission was barely audible. My father pointed you out, said you were an up-and-coming developer I should network with. I had no idea it was part of his plan. And Donovan? Was he part of the plan too? Not initially. My father genuinely despised Donovan in college. Victoria's laugh was bitter. The irony is that he only reconnected us because he needed someone who could lure me away from you when the time came. Someone I had history with, someone who would follow his instructions. Sam absorbed this information, fitting it into the complex puzzle taking shape in his mind. Why are you telling me this now, Victoria? Why not continue with your father's plan? Take half my business, start your new life with Donovan. Because I discovered what my father did to your father. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. Because despite everything, I did love you once. And because... She took a deep breath. I'm pregnant, Sam. The statement hung in the air between them. Sam studied her face, looking for signs of deception. Convenient timing. I didn't know until last week. Victoria placed a hand protectively over her stomach. I was going to tell you the night of the family barbecue, but then I overheard Preston and my father discussing their plans for the divorce. I confronted them after you went to get chairs. And that's when you agreed to work on getting half my business? I said what I needed to say to buy time. Victoria wiped away a tear. I was trying to figure out what was happening, why my father was suddenly pushing for me to leave you when he'd orchestrated our marriage in the first place. Sam remained silent, processing this new information. If Victoria was telling the truth, if she'd been manipulated by Theodore as much as he had been, it complicated matters significantly. And if she was truly pregnant, the child could be Donovan's, he pointed out. It's not. Victoria's response was immediate. Donovan and I never. She looked away, embarrassed. The relationship wasn't physical. It was all for show, to convince my father I was following his plan. You expect me to believe that. I expect you to verify it, which you can. Victoria's gaze was steady now. DNA testing will prove the child is yours. And everything on this drive will confirm what I've told you about my father. Sam took the flash drive, turning it over in his hand. What do you want, Victoria? Justice for your father. Protection from mine. She looked out over the lake. And a chance to make amends, though I know I don't deserve one. Theodore won't stop. I know. That's why I came to you. Victoria's voice strengthened. You've already proven you're more capable than he anticipated. And now that I know the truth, I want to help you end this, for all our sakes. Sam considered his options carefully. Trusting Victoria seemed foolish given recent events. Yet the flash drive might contain information vital to understanding Theodore's schemes. And if she was truly pregnant with his child, I'll review what's on the drive, he said finally. Until then, you should stay somewhere Theodore can't find you. I've been at Diana's since yesterday. Victoria stood. I'll wait to hear from you. As she turned to leave, Sam asked the question that had been nagging at him. Did you know about Iris? About my mother? Victoria looked genuinely confused. Your mother? You told me she abandoned you when you were 12. Someone's been in contact with her recently. I assumed it was you or Theodore. Not me. Victoria frowned. But if she's resurfaced now, it can't be coincidence. Be careful, Sam. My father has more allies than you know. After Victoria departed, Sam remained on the bench, watching as she walked to her car. Officer Naylor approached once she was gone. What do you think? He asked, sitting where Victoria had been. I think I need to verify everything she just told me. Sam pocketed the flash drive, including the pregnancy claim. She seemed sincere. Naylor had been close enough to hear their conversation. But then, wouldn't she? Exactly. Sam stood. I need you to keep monitoring Theodore's movements. If he contacts anyone unusual, I want to know about it. Define unusual. Anyone not associated with his firm or family. Particularly anyone with law enforcement or criminal connections. Naylor nodded. You think he'd resort to something extreme? I think a man who would track a 12-year-old orphan for 20 years out of fear and obsession is capable of anything. Sam checked his watch. I have another meeting to get to. Keep me posted. That meeting was with Bennett and Melanie Frost at the latter's office. Sam arrived to find them already reviewing documents spread across Melanie's conference table. The background check on Iris Matthews confirms her story, Bennett reported as Sam sat down. She's been living in Seattle under that name for the past decade. Works as a librarian. No criminal record. No suspicious financial activity. And Michael Kerrigan's murder? Officially ruled a robbery gone wrong. Case went cold after a few months of investigation. Bennett pushed a folder towards Sam. But there are inconsistencies in the police report. Valuable items left behind. No signs of forced entry. And the detective originally assigned to the case was suddenly transferred mid-investigation. Melanie adjusted her glasses. More interestingly, Theodore Wilcox was interviewed as a potential witness. He claimed to have seen a suspicious individual near Michael's office building the day of the murder, establishing his alibi while inserting himself into the investigation, Sam murmured. Classic misdirection. Exactly. Melanie tapped a document. His statement effectively directed police attention toward a homeless man who frequented the area. That individual was later found dead. Apparent suicide, though the timing is suspect. What about Victoria's claims? Sam placed the flash drive on the table. Can we verify any of this? Bennett connected the drive to his laptop. Let's find out. For the next hour, They reviewed the contents, Theodore's journal entries, financial records, the surveillance photos of Sam throughout his childhood and early adulthood. The evidence painted a disturbing picture of obsession and calculation. "He's been playing a very long game," Melanie observed, examining a timeline Bennett had constructed. "Orchestrating your meeting with Victoria, manipulating both of you for years, all while maintaining plausible deniability. The question is why." Sam studied a particularly troubling journal entry from Theodore, dated shortly after Sam and Victoria's engagement. The son returns to the scene of his father's transgression, oblivious to the role he plays. Victoria performs admirably, though her attachment appears genuine, an unexpected complication. The symmetry is almost poetic. "Michael Kerrigan sought to destroy what I built, and now I will use his son to complete what he nearly dismantled. When the time comes, Samuel will understand the true cost of his father's righteousness." "Your father must have had significant evidence against Theodore," Bennett reasoned. "Evidence that threatened not just his reputation, but his freedom. Evidence that died with him," Sam pointed out. "Or so Theodore believed." Melanie looked up sharply. "You think there's still evidence out there? After all this time?" "My mother said my father kept detailed records of his investigation. The notebook she showed me was just one of many, according to her." Sam tapped his fingers thoughtfully on the table. If he suspected his life was in danger, he would have secured that evidence somewhere. "A safety deposit box," Bennett suggested. "An attorney's office? Or with someone he trusted implicitly?" Sam stood suddenly. "I need to speak with Iris again, and we need to move quickly. If Theodore suspects Victoria has turned against him, he'll accelerate whatever endgame he's been planning," Melanie finished grimly. "And based on what we've seen here, that endgame has always involved your destruction, financially, personally, and perhaps literally." As they concluded their meeting, Sam received a text from Diana. "Victoria's gone. Left a note saying she was meeting with Theodore to confront him. I'm worried." Sam forwarded the message to Officer Naylor with a simple instruction: "Find them. Now." The carefully constructed chessboard had been upended. Whatever moves Sam had planned would need to be abandoned in favor of immediate action. Victoria, and possibly his unborn child, were now in Theodore's hands. And a man like Theodore Wilcox, cornered and desperate, represented a danger Sam couldn't afford to underestimate. Chapter 7: Blood Ties. The windshield wipers fought against the sudden downpour as Sam drove to the Wilcox estate, his mind racing through possible scenarios. Behind him, Bennett followed in his own vehicle, with Officer Naylor and 2 trusted officers in an unmarked police car close behind. Theodore's ancestral home stood on 3 acres of manicured grounds, the colonial mansion a symbol of old money and influence. As Sam approached the wrought iron gates, he noticed they stood partially open, unusual for a property normally secured with excessive caution. "Something's wrong," he murmured into his phone, where Bennett was on speaker. "The security gate is open, and I don't see the usual guard. Trap." Bennett's concern was evident. "Possibly. Or Theodore's an estate I haven't seen before." Sam drove through cautiously. "Tell Naylor to hold position until I signal. I don't want to escalate this unnecessarily." The circular driveway was empty except for Theodore's Bentley and Victoria's Audi. Sam parked directly behind Victoria's car, blocking it in, a precaution in case she was being coerced. Rain pelted his shoulders as he approached the front door, finding it unlocked. The foyer was dimly lit, the house unnaturally quiet. Sam moved silently through the familiar space, senses heightened. Voices drifted from Theodore's study. Victoria's raised in distress, Theodore's lower but intense. As Sam neared the partially open door, a third voice joined the conversation, one he recognized with a jolt of surprise. "You promised no one would get hurt." Donovan Pierce's tone was agitated. "This isn't what I agreed to. Circumstances change." Theodore's response was dismissive. "Victoria's interference has forced my hand." "Dad, please." Victoria sounded tearful. "This has gone far enough. Sam knows everything. About Michael Kerrigan, about your involvement in his death, about how you manipulated me into marrying him." He knows what you've told him. Theodore's voice hardened. Half-truths and suspicions. Without proof, it's meaningless. There is proof. Sam pushed the door open fully, stepping into the study. And it doesn't just implicate you in my father's murder. It exposes 20 years of financial crimes, Theodore. 3 heads turned sharply toward him. Victoria sat in an armchair, eyes red from crying, one hand protectively covering her stomach. Theodore stood behind his massive desk, a tumbler of whiskey in hand, his normally impeccable appearance disheveled. Donovan hovered awkwardly between them, looking as if he'd prefer to be anywhere else. Samuel. Theodore's smile was thin. I wondered when you'd arrive. Always the hero, aren't you? Let Victoria leave, Sam said evenly. This is between us. Is it? Theodore gestured expansively with his drink. I rather think it involves all of us now. A proper family drama. The wronged husband, the duplicitous wife, the ineffectual lover. He turned to Victoria. Go ahead, darling. Tell him the truth about your pregnancy. Victoria paled. I already have. The baby is Sam's. Is it? Theodore's laugh was cruel. Or is that just another lie you've constructed to salvage something from this disaster? Enough, Theodore. Sam took a step forward. The police are outside. Officer Naylor has been building a case against you for months. Your journal entries, the financial records Victoria found, they're all in safe hands now. Naylor. Theodore sneered the name. Another pawn you've recruited. Do you think a single detective can stand against the connections I've cultivated over decades? I think the SEC investigators currently examining your firm's records would be very interested in those connections. Sam's voice remained measured, as would the prosecutors building a case for your involvement in Michael Kerrigan's murder. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Theodore's features. He recovered quickly, his expression hardening into contempt. You were so like your father, self-righteous, relentless. Theodore drained his whiskey. He too thought he could bring me down with pieces of paper and legal procedures. He discovered too late the inadequacy of that approach. Sam, Victoria said quietly, my father has a gun in his desk drawer. Theodore's hand moved subtly toward the drawer. Sam tensed, prepared to lunge forward if necessary. Think carefully, Theodore. This doesn't end how you want it to. Oh, but it does. Theodore's smile was chilling. You see, I've had 20 years to prepare for this moment. 20 years to ensure that if Michael Kerrigan's son ever became a problem, I would have contingencies in place. Like Donovan? Sam glanced at the man who stood frozen between them. Your backup plan if Victoria developed genuine feelings for me? The pressure point you could use to control her? Donovan has been useful, if unreliable. Theodore's dismissive tone caused Donovan to flinch. But I'm referring to something more substantial. Tell me, Samuel, have you spoken with your mother recently? Sam's blood ran cold. What have you done? Nothing yet. Iris is simply enjoying my hospitality at a location known only to me. Theodore's confidence was returning. You'll withdraw all allegations. You'll sign over controlling interest in Kerrigan Construction to a holding company I designate. You'll disappear from Victoria's life permanently. In exchange, your mother lives. Dad, no. Victoria stood abruptly. You can't do this. I can and will. Theodore's voice was steel. Your sentimentality has caused enough damage, Victoria. Now sit down and be silent. I'm done following your orders. Victoria moved towards Sam. I'm done being your pawn. Theodore's hand plunged into the drawer, emerging with a small revolver. I said sit down. The room froze in tableau. Theodore with the gun leveled at Victoria. Victoria halfway between the chair and Sam. Donovan pressing himself against the bookcase, as if hoping to disappear into it. Lower the weapon, Theodore. Sam's voice was deadly calm. You're not a killer. Are not? Theodore's laugh was brittle. Ask your father about that. Oh, wait, you can't. You didn't pull the trigger yourself, Sam guessed. You hired someone. Kept your hands clean. That's your way, isn't it? Others do the dirty work while you maintain plausible deniability. Pragmatism, not cowardice. Theodore's hand remained steady. Victoria, return to your seat now. Instead, Victoria took another step toward Sam. No. The study door burst open as Bennett charged in, followed by Officer Naylor with his weapon drawn. "Police! Drop the gun, Wilcox!" Naylor barked. What happened next unfolded with nightmarish clarity. Theodore, startled by the intrusion, swung the revolver toward the new threat. Naylor shouted another warning. Victoria lunged forward, perhaps to reach Sam, perhaps to stop her father. The gunshot cracked through the room like thunder. Victoria crumpled to the floor, crimson blooming across her gray dress. For a moment, everyone stood paralyzed in shock. Then Sam was beside her, applying pressure to the wound in her shoulder, his voice surprisingly steady as he called for an ambulance. Naylor disarmed Theodore, forcing him to the ground none too gently. Bennett restrained Donovan, who had made an abortive move toward the door. "Stay with me, Victoria," Sam urged, his hands slick with her blood. "Help is coming." "Iris," Victoria gasped, her face contorted with pain. "Boathouse. Dad's keeping her at the boathouse." Sam looked up sharply at Theodore, who lay face down on the expensive carpet, hands cuffed behind him. The older man's expression was a mixture of rage and defeat. "The property on Lake Champlain," Victoria continued weakly. "Dad's private retreat. Get an ambulance here now," Sam instructed Naylor, "and send units to Theodore's lake property immediately." As paramedics arrived and took over Victoria's care, Sam stood back, his shirt and hands stained red. The controlled fury he'd maintained throughout this ordeal threatened to overwhelm him now. Bennett approached, his expression grave. "She's going to be okay, Sam. The paramedics say the bullet went through clean, missed any vital organs." "And Iris? Any word?" "Units are on their way to the lake property now." Bennett hesitated. "There's something else you should know." When they searched Theodore, they found a flash drive. He held up a small black device. He had an escape plan ready to go, new identity, offshore accounts, the works. Sam took the drive, turning it over in his blood-stained hands. 20 years of obsession, and he still underestimated me. "What's our next move?" "We follow this through to the end." Sam watched as Theodore was escorted to a police car. No matter where it leads. 3 hours later, Sam sat in a hospital waiting room, having given his statement to the police. Victoria was in surgery, her condition stable. Donovan was in custody, cooperating fully in exchange for leniency. And Theodore Wilcox sat in an interrogation room, facing multiple charges: attempted murder, kidnapping, conspiracy, and, pending further investigation, the murder of Michael Kerrigan 20 years earlier. Officer Naylor entered the waiting room, exhaustion evident in his features. "We found her. Iris is safe." Sam felt a knot of tension release. Was she harmed? Dehydrated, disoriented, but otherwise uninjured. Theodore had her drugged and transported to the lake house yesterday. Apparently, he'd been having her followed since she arrived in town. Another loose end he tried to eliminate when things started unraveling. Sam shook his head. "Where is she now?" "On her way here. She insisted on seeing you." Naylor sat heavily in the chair opposite Sam. "There's more." The text examined Theodore's flash drive. In addition to his escape plan, it contained encrypted files dating back 20 years, including details of your father's murder. He kept evidence of his own crime. Sam couldn't hide his surprise. Trophies, maybe, or insurance against his co-conspirators. Naylor leaned forward. "This goes beyond Theodore, Sam. The names in those files, powerful people, many still active in finance and politics. Your father stumbled onto something much bigger than one corrupt investment banker. And now that something has come full circle." Sam stood as a doctor approached from the surgical ward. "Victoria?" "The surgery was successful," the doctor confirmed. "She's stable and resting. The baby appears unaffected, though we'll continue to monitor closely." Sam thanked him, a complex mix of emotions washing through him. Whatever lies Victoria had told, whatever role she had played in Theodore's schemes, she had ultimately risked her life to help him. And now she carried his child, a connection that would bind them regardless of how their marriage ended. As the doctor departed, a nurse appeared with Iris in tow. His mother looked smaller than Sam remembered from their meeting, fragile in hospital-issued scrubs, her face bearing the strain of her ordeal. Samuel. Her voice caught as she saw him. Sam hesitated only briefly before crossing the room to embrace her. 20 years of absence couldn't be erased in a moment, but here, in the aftermath of Theodore's final play, it seemed a beginning was possible. "Michael would be so proud of you," Iris whispered, her tears dampening his shirt. "You finished what he started." "Not yet," Sam replied quietly. "But I will." Chapter 8. The Weight of Truth. 2 weeks passed in a blur of police statements, legal consultations, and hospital visits. Victoria had been released after 5 days, the wound in her shoulder healing well, the pregnancy progressing without complications. She had moved in with Diana, maintaining a respectful distance from Sam while the future of their relationship remained uncertain. Theodore Wilcox, denied bail due to flight risk, awaited trial in county detention. The evidence against him mounted daily as investigators pieced together decades of financial crimes and the conspiracy that had led to Michael Kerrigan's murder. Donovan Pierce had turned state's evidence, revealing his role in Theodore's schemes, from the orchestrated reconnection with Victoria to the financial improprieties at Wilcox Investments. In exchange for his testimony, he would likely serve minimal jail time, though his professional reputation was irreparably damaged. Sam, meanwhile, had begun the delicate process of rebuilding his relationship with Iris. They met regularly for lunch, carefully navigating 20 years of absence, filling in the gaps of their separate lives. The abandonment that had shaped Sam's childhood couldn't be undone, but understanding its context helped diminish its power over him. On a crisp autumn morning, Sam arrived at the offices of Kerrigan Construction to find Bennett waiting with an unfamiliar elderly man. "Sam, this is Walter Fisher," Bennett introduced them. "He was your father's supervisor at the SEC. Fisher, stooped with age but sharp-eyed, extended a gnarled hand. "I've been following the Wilcox case in the news. When I realized you were Michael's son, I knew I had to come forward." In Walter's conference room, Fisher placed a weathered briefcase on the table. "2 days before your father was killed, he brought me this." He opened the case, revealing neatly organized files. Evidence of a money laundering operation involving several prominent investment firms, including Wilcox Investments. "Why didn't you take this to the authorities after his death?" Sam asked, trying to keep accusation from his tone. Fisher's expression was pained. "I tried, but the reach of the people involved. My supervisor buried the investigation. When I persisted, there were threats against my family, my pension. I was a coward." He pushed the briefcase towards Sam. "But I kept everything, hoping someday justice would be possible." Sam examined the documents, meticulous records of offshore accounts, shell companies, and illicit transactions. The cornerstone of it all was Theodore Wilcox, who had facilitated the laundering of millions through seemingly legitimate investments. "This corroborates everything on Theodore's flash drive," Sam noted. "With this and Donovan's testimony, Theodore is finished," Bennett completed, along with several former partners who were still active in the financial sector. Fisher nodded grimly. "Your father was a principled man, Samuel. He believed the system would work if given the proper evidence." His eyes clouded. He underestimated how far certain people would go to protect themselves. "A mistake I haven't repeated," Sam said quietly. Later that day, Sam visited Victoria at Diana's home. She greeted him cautiously, one arm still in a sling, her free hand resting protectively over her slightly rounded belly. "You look well," he observed as they settled in Diana's sunroom, the space carefully neutral territory. "The doctor says everything's progressing normally." Victoria hesitated. "Sam, about the baby." "I've reviewed the timeline," Sam interrupted gently. "Whatever else happened between us, I believe you about this. The child is mine." Relief washed over Victoria's features. "Thank you. I know trust doesn't come easily for you now, especially with me." "No, it doesn't." Sam was direct without being cruel. "But regardless of our personal situation, this child deserves better than the legacies we've inherited." Victoria nodded, her eyes filling with tears. "I never wanted any of this, Sam. Not the deception, not my father's obsession, not the pain I caused you. I believe that too. Sam's admission surprised even himself. Your father's manipulation was comprehensive. I've seen the evidence of how he controlled your life, Victoria, just as he tried to control mine. What happens now? Victoria asked softly. With us, I mean. I don't know. Sam's honesty was tempered with compassion. I can't simply forget or forgive everything that's happened. But I also can't ignore that you risked your life to help me in the end. That we're going to be parents. I'm not asking for reconciliation, Victoria clarified. I know too much has happened. But perhaps a civil relationship? For our child's sake. That seems reasonable. Sam stood, having said what he came to say. The prosecutor wants to meet with you tomorrow about your father's case. I can drive you if that helps. Thank you. Victoria walked him to the door. Sam, I am sorry. For all of it. Sam nodded once, acknowledging her apology without accepting or rejecting it. The wounds were still too fresh, the betrayal too profound for simple forgiveness. But the white-hot rage that had driven him in the weeks after discovering her deception had cooled into something more manageable, a determined resolve to move forward on his own terms. That evening, Sam met with Melanie Frost to discuss the divorce proceedings, which had continued despite the dramatic developments. Given Victoria's cooperation and testimony against Theodore, her claim on your business assets has been withdrawn completely, Melanie reported. The current proposal is a clean break financially, with shared custody of the child once it's born. That seems fair. Sam reviewed the documents. What about the house? She's relinquishing any claim to it. Says she has no desire to live there after everything that's happened. Sam considered this. The colonial-style home he'd shared with Victoria held too many memories, too many false moments. I'll probably sell it anyway. Start fresh somewhere else. A wise choice. Melanie removed her glasses. Sam, as your attorney, I should point out that you're being remarkably generous given the circumstances. I'm not doing this for Victoria, Sam clarified. I'm doing it for my child. And for myself. I want this chapter closed, Melanie. Cleanly and quickly. And Theodore? The prosecution is offering a plea deal, life without parole in exchange for a full confession. Let him rot in prison. Sam's voice hardened. Let him live long enough to see everything he built crumble, everything he valued stripped away. A quick death would be too merciful. Melanie nodded, understanding the justice in this perspective. There's one more thing. Preston Wilcox has been trying to contact you. Says he has information you might want. Sam had almost forgotten about Victoria's brother, who had disappeared when Theodore's schemes began unraveling. What kind of information? He wouldn't say, only that it concerns your mother. Intrigued despite his distrust, Sam arranged to meet Preston the following day at a public cafe downtown. Preston arrived looking distinctly uncomfortable, his usual arrogance replaced by nervous vigilance. Thank you for seeing me, Preston began, hunched over his coffee. I know I'm probably the last person you want to talk to right now. You're not even in the top 3, Sam replied dryly. What's this about my mother? Preston glanced around before extracting an envelope from his jacket. After everything went down with my father, I started going through some of his old files. Found this in a safe deposit box I didn't know existed. Sam opened the envelope to find a decades-old photograph of a much younger Theodore with a beautiful red-haired woman. With a shock, he recognized a youthful version of his mother. Iris and my father were involved before she met your father, Preston explained quietly. For what I can piece together, she left Theodore for Michael Kerrigan. Father never forgave either of them. So this wasn't just about my father's investigation, Sam murmured, studying the photograph. It was personal from the beginning, pathologically so. Preston shook his head. Father devoted his life to punishing your mother by destroying your father, then focusing that same obsession on you when you reappeared in his orbit. And you helped him. Sam's tone wasn't accusatory, merely stating fact. I did. Preston didn't attempt to deny it. I worshipped my father, believed in his narrative that the Kerrigans had somehow wronged our family. It wasn't until recently that I understood how twisted his perspective was. Why tell me this now? Preston's expression turned rueful. Believe it or not, seeing how far my father's obsession went Watching him shoot his own daughter forced me to reevaluate everything. I can't change what I did, but I can at least ensure you have the full picture. Sam pocketed the photograph, neither accepting nor rejecting Preston's implicit plea for understanding. Is there anything else I should know? Just that Victoria truly did fall in love with you, despite Father's orchestration of your meeting. That wasn't part of his plan. Preston stood to leave. For what it's worth, I'm sorry, Sam. For all of it. As Preston departed, Sam remained at the table, contemplating this final piece of the puzzle. Theodore's obsession had never been purely about financial crimes or professional reputation. It had been rooted in a personal rejection decades earlier, a wound that had festered into all-consuming hatred. Later that day, Sam visited Iris at her hotel, sharing what he had learned from Preston. "Is it true?" he asked simply. "Were you and Theodore involved?" Iris's hands trembled slightly as she looked at the photograph. "Yes. We were engaged briefly when I was very young, 20, barely out of my parents' home. Theodore was charming then, ambitious, but also controlling, possessive. Then you met my father." Michael was investigating some of Theodore's early financial practices. Iris smiled softly at the memory. He was everything Theodore wasn't, honest, principled kind. When I broke off the engagement to be with Michael, Theodore changed, became cold, calculating. We never imagined his resentment would evolve into something so destructive. A lifetime of hatred, Sam mused, all stemming from this. "I'm so sorry, Samuel." Iris's eyes filled with tears. "If I had known, if I had suspected Theodore was tracking you all those years." "You couldn't have known." Sam reached across the table to take his mother's hand, a gesture that would have been unimaginable weeks earlier. None of us could have predicted how deep his obsession ran. That night, as Sam walked along the lakeshore near his temporary apartment, his phone rang with a call from Officer Naylor. Theodore's taken the plea deal, Naylor informed him without preamble. Life without parole in exchange for a full confession and cooperation in prosecuting his co-conspirators. He'll die in prison. Yes, and his legacy will be one of disgrace rather than success. Naylor paused. "Are you satisfied with that outcome, Sam?" Sam considered the question carefully. The anger that had driven him since discovering Victoria's betrayal had not disappeared, but had transformed into something more controlled, more purposeful. "Justice for my father was always the goal," he said finally. "Theodore will pay for what he did. So will his accomplices. That's enough. And Victoria? The divorce is proceeding. Some betrayals can't be undone, Graham." Sam watched the moonlight ripple across the water. "We'll co-parent our child." Beyond that, he left the thought unfinished. After ending the call, Sam stood at the water's edge, reflecting on the path that had led him here. The orphan boy, the self-made businessman, the betrayed husband, the avenging son, all aspects of himself, all shaped by circumstances beyond his control. But what came next would be his choice entirely. That, perhaps, was the most important victory of all. Chapter 9. Symmetry. 6 months later, Sam stood in the nursery of his new lakeside home, assembling a crib as winter sunlight streamed through the windows. The house, modern, open, filled with light, represented his fresh start, located far from the memories associated with the colonial he had shared with Victoria. Bennett entered with 2 cups of coffee, setting one on the windowsill within Sam's reach. "The movers just brought in the last of the furniture. Everything else is set up. Thanks for overseeing all this." Sam tightened the final screw on the crib. Couldn't have managed it while handling the business transition. Kerrigan Construction had undergone significant changes in recent months. Sam had promoted several trusted employees to leadership positions, restructuring the company to run efficiently with less of his direct involvement. The Ridgemont development project was proceeding on schedule, promising to be their most profitable venture yet. "Have you heard from Victoria?" Bennett asked, leaning against the doorframe. "She had an appointment with the obstetrician yesterday. Everything looks good. The baby's due in 3 weeks." Their relationship had settled into a cordial coexistence focused on their forthcoming child. The divorce had been finalized without acrimony, with both parties committed to a cooperative co-parenting arrangement. Victoria had moved into a modest townhouse near Diana's home, using her portion of the proceeds from selling their shared house to establish herself independently from her family's tainted wealth. And Theodore? Any updates there? Officially diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, according to the prison psychiatrist. Sam tested the crib's stability with a firm shake. He's reportedly writing his memoirs, claiming he was manipulated by his former business partners, rewriting history to cast himself as the victim. Bennett shook his head. Some people never change. No, they don't. Sam's tone was matter-of-fact rather than bitter. But that's his problem now, not mine. The house phone rang, and Bennett went to answer it. He returned moments later, his expression serious. It's Victoria. She's in labor. At the hospital, Sam found Victoria already in the delivery room, her face contorted with pain as contractions intensified. Diana sat beside her, offering encouragement and support. Sam. Victoria reached for his hand as he entered. The baby's coming early. For the next 6 hours, Sam remained at Victoria's side, personal history set aside as they faced this pivotal moment together. When their daughter finally arrived, 7 pounds, 3 ounces, with a shock of dark hair and lungs that announced her presence emphatically, the connection between them transcended their complicated past. She's perfect, Victoria whispered, cradling the newborn. What should we name her? Sam had been considering this question for months. What about Grace? Grace Kerrigan. Grace. Victoria tested the name, smiling through her exhaustion. It's perfect. As Victoria rested, Sam held his daughter in the hospital room's quiet darkness, studying her tiny features with wonder. In her, he saw possibilities rather than the weight of the past, a future unburdened by Theodore's machinations or the cycle of betrayal that had defined recent months. A soft knock at the door heralded Iris's arrival. Sam had invited her to be present for the birth, a gesture of reconciliation that continued to evolve with cautious optimism. She's beautiful, Samuel. Iris approached tentatively, her eyes fixed on her granddaughter. May I hold her? Sam carefully transferred Grace to Iris's waiting arms, watching as his mother's eyes filled with tears. Your father would be so proud, Iris murmured. Not just of her, but of you. How you've handled everything, how you've refused to let bitterness consume you. I came close, Sam admitted. After I overheard Victoria and Preston that night, I wanted nothing more than to destroy everyone involved, take everything from them the way they planned to take from me. But you didn't let that define you. Iris gently touched Grace's cheek. You sought justice, not revenge. Is there a difference? The question was genuine, not rhetorical. Yes. Iris looked up at her son. Revenge consumes the vengeful. Justice allows for healing, for new beginnings. Later, as Iris departed and Victoria slept, Sam sat by the window with Grace nestled against his chest. His phone buzzed with a text from Officer Naylor. Theodore attempted suicide this morning. Failed. Now on her 24-hour watch. Thought you should know. Sam read the message without strong emotion. Theodore's fate, whatever it might be, no longer held power over him. The man who had orchestrated so much pain, who had murdered his father, manipulated his wife, and attempted to destroy everything Sam had built, had ultimately lost everything himself. There was a certain symmetry in that outcome, but Sam took no particular pleasure in it. His focus now was on the future, on the tiny life in his arms, on rebuilding his relationship with Iris, on guiding Kerrigan Construction through its next phase of growth. The past would always be there, its lessons integrated rather than forgotten, but would not dictate what came next. 3 days later, Victoria and Grace were released from the hospital. Sam helped them settle into Victoria's townhouse, ensuring they had everything needed for the baby's first days at home. The nursery at your place is ready whenever you want to exercise your custody time, Victoria told him as he prepared to leave. Though I appreciate you giving me these first few weeks with her. It makes sense. Sam's tone was practical, but not cold. You're breastfeeding, and you need time to recover. We'll stick to the schedule we agreed on after that. Victoria nodded, then hesitated. Sam, I know I have no right to ask this, but Do you think you'll ever be able to forgive me? Not for my sake, but for Grace's? I don't want her to grow up feeling the tension between us. Sam considered the question carefully. Forgiveness isn't a single moment, Victoria. It's a process. He looked toward the bassinet where Grace slept peacefully. For her sake, I'm committed to that process. The rest will take time. It wasn't the answer Victoria might have hoped for, but it was honest. And honesty was the foundation they needed to build upon, regardless of what their future relationship might become. In the months that followed, Sam established a new rhythm to his life. 3 days each week were dedicated entirely to Grace. His work schedule adjusted to accommodate his role as an active father. Weekends often included Iris, who had found an apartment nearby and was gradually becoming a steady presence in both Sam's and Grace's lives. The legal proceedings surrounding Theodore and his co-conspirators continued, with several prominent financiers facing serious charges based on the evidence Sam had helped uncover. Theodore himself remained in prison, his attempts to rehabilitate his public image largely unsuccessful. Preston had relocated to Europe, maintaining minimal contact with Victoria and none with Sam. On Grace's first birthday, Sam hosted a small gathering at his lakeside home. Victoria arrived with Diana, bearing gifts and a homemade cake. Bennett came with his new girlfriend. Iris helped with decorations, moving comfortably through the space as if she'd always belonged there. As Sam watched Grace toddle unsteadily between the adults, laughing with the pure joy of newfound mobility, he reflected on the journey that had led to this moment. The betrayal that had once threatened to destroy him had instead forced a reckoning with his past, with his capacity for both ruthlessness and compassion, with the legacy he wanted to create. The perfect smile he had maintained while hosting dinner after overhearing Victoria's conversation with Preston had evolved into something genuine, not a mask to conceal pain, but an authentic expression of hard-won contentment. Later, as the party wound down and guests departed, Sam stood on the deck overlooking the lake, Grace sleeping against his shoulder. Victoria approached cautiously, maintaining the respectful distance that characterized their interactions now. "Thank you for today," she said quietly. "For everything, really. You've been more generous than I deserve." It was never about what either of us deserved. Sam's gaze remained on the horizon. It was about breaking the cycle, about choosing a different path than Theodore did. Victoria nodded, understanding the implicit comparison. You succeeded where he failed. He let bitterness consume him for decades. You found a way forward. Not alone. Sam acknowledged the truth of this. Bennett, Iris, even you in the end, you all helped make that possible. They stood in companionable silence, watching the sunset paint the water in shades of gold and crimson. Grace stirred slightly, then settled back in his sleep, one tiny hand clutching Sam's shirt. "She's the best of both of us," Victoria observed softly. Yes, Sam's agreement was genuine, and she'll never know the weight of the past. That ends with us. As Victoria prepared to leave, taking a sleeping Grace with her for her scheduled custody time, she paused at the door. "Are you happy, Sam?" Truly, the question caught him by surprise, not because it was inappropriate, but because he hadn't really considered it in those terms. Happiness had seemed like a luxury he couldn't afford during the tumultuous events of the past year. First focused on survival, then on justice, then on building a stable environment for his daughter. "I'm at peace," he said finally. "The rest is still evolving." It was an honest assessment. The man who had maintained a perfect smile while his world collapsed around him had emerged stronger, more authentic, unwilling to settle for facades or half-truths. The ruthlessness that had allowed him to dismantle Theodore's schemes remained a part of him, tempered now by the responsibility of fatherhood and the perspective gained through reconciliation with Iris. Some betrayals could never be fully forgiven. Some wounds would always leave scars. But in choosing justice over revenge, in prioritizing his daughter's future over the bitter satisfaction of complete retribution, Sam had discovered something Theodore Wilcox never could: the power of moving forward without being defined by the past. As the door closed behind Victoria and Grace, Sam returned to the deck, watching as the first stars appeared above the darkening lake. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, business decisions, co-parenting negotiations, the ongoing process of rebuilding trust with those who had earned a second chance. But tonight, in this peaceful moment, the perfect smile that had once masked his pain was replaced by something genuine, a quiet acknowledgement that even from the darkest betrayal, something valuable had emerged. Not happiness, perhaps. Not yet. But possibility. And for now, that was enough. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.